Hey guys, welcome back. This is Issues with Toddy One Skip. And I am Toddy One Skip. Welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year's. Bless you. And so this is kind of part two. I read some of your comments. So let me I so the topic of my past, of my childhood, is a soft spot because there was a time, well, let me just get through the whole story and you'll understand. So from Baltimore, we were taken to Albuquerque, New Mexico. My dad got there before us, and we were supposed to meet U.S. Marshals there, not my dad. And we were supposed to get off a certain part of the aircraft, and for some reason that was blocked off. And anyway, we ended up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which I really loved Albuquerque, New Mexico. And when we got there, I had a lot of spare time because I was going into high school, and because I was old, my sister was younger, my stepsister was younger, and she was able to get right into elementary school because they didn't need the documentation that was needed to get into high school. So I spent a lot of time. Thankfully, I was writing at the time. And I mean, I spent a lot of time. I wrote screenplays in longhand on yellow legal pads that I actually sent to Fawcett and Majors Productions. So Farrah Fawcett and Lee Majors, before Farrah Fawcett was with Ryan O'Neal, she was with the $1 Million Man, for those that might not know. Anyway, you guys are older. It seems like the audience that I have is an older audience, so I'm just going to talk to you as a woman my age because that's, who I am. I can't be anybody else. I don't believe in Scientology, so this is the only time that I think I'm here right now. I'm not sure about reincarnation, but certainly not in the way that Scientology sees it. I definitely think that it matters while we're here. And so the reason why I put this channel together was really years ago. It was Endformance, and it was to talk about what was going on in the world, and it was topical, and it had to do with politics, which I'm not talking about, and I don't want to talk about, but it was a panel. And that's reincarnated back into Endformance, but it's me and my friend Russell, who I work with, and we usually do it once a week. We try to do it once a week. But I have opinions, and as you know, my opinions is what got me here. But I talk a lot about families. I talk a lot about cults. I talk about things that fascinate me. Why do they fascinate me? It has to do with my upbringing. So my upbringing is I am a product of the Witness Protection Program. I was only in the program for a short period of time, but during that period of time, my mom didn't know where I was, and I was unable to write to her directly. So I would write to her, but if I wrote something about the mountains, they would cross that off with a black marker. If I wrote something about the temperature, things would be crossed off. I couldn't, everything was, everything was, what's the word, edited and redacted. Things were just taken, and not because I took them back, but because there were things that I wasn't allowed to say. And as a child, my world was really small. I was taken to a place I didn't know. I wasn't able to contact who I couldn't contact. I don't know what a disconnection feels like, but that felt pretty disconnected to me, where it literally took me months to get a letter from my mom, and they were so vague because her life wasn't perfect either. Unfortunately, my grandparents helped, which, okay, grateful for, but it came at a price, and that came at the price of my mom's independence. And, a very overbearing grandmother. I think that she meant well, but she was very controlling and thought that she knew better than anybody else. And my mom wasn't strong enough to, shake it off. And so my mom was more or less under my grandmother's control. And, I think my mom would admit to that. in the meantime, my grandmother again and my grandfather are very good people. They didn't have to do half of what they did for us. I had brothers that lived there longer than I did. I wanted to live with my dad. I had again a better relationship with my dad, and one of my brothers as well lived with my dad, but not during the time of the witness protection because he was older and you're not gonna at that age you're not gonna move away from your friends. I felt pretty alone sometimes when I was there. So as a child, I mean, that's definitely an injustice. That's something I felt, and that's something that I feel like I can relate to. I was certainly in a safer environment than what I feel Scientology is, but at the time going through it and not being able to reach out to people and being told, no, you didn't come from there, you now come from here, and that's not your mom anymore. And you don't have brothers. I mean, that's pretty traumatic, I think, for a kid. I made friends that I'm still friends with today, so that's tricky. When I left Florida, I left as one person, and then I took on a new identity and such, and a different name. The last name was different. And when I came back, it was a mess because my stepmom had left the witness protection program like in the middle of the night, more or less. And things were just unsettled. Like I had 2 social security numbers. I had 2 last names. My dad unfortunately got time, so my stepmom just took off, and I went back to my mom. That's a whole other story, but there were things that weren't tied up. There was a lot of loose ends and such. But while I was there at that age of 13, 14 years old, I had this like made up childhood because I had childhood memories with brothers playing football on the streets, and I didn't have any brothers. I mean, so I had to always be on when it came to being friends with anybody. And I had a New York accent at the time. My dad had one at the time. It wasn't as it was never really that strong, but it was definitely more than what it was throughout the years. And his wife had a New York accent, and her whole family had a New York accent. And so I had spent time with them, so I had picked up this accent, so it was believable that I was from New York. But I wasn't. So everything kind of had to be changed and manipulated. That all came out within years. Because I had to go back to the 9th grade because, again, you're waiting for your school records, and now you're waiting for them under a different name, and you're not sure which name you're going under. It was a shit show, to be honest with you. And it took a while for all that to get sorted out. But yeah, I remember knocking on my mom's door and being surprised, So it was weird. It was strange. And then, of course, when I came back, people wanted to know, well, where were you? And I didn't know what I could talk about or what I couldn't talk about, or it was a unique situation, that one was. And certainly as I got older and it played out. And what I mean about people weaponizing your past, anybody could weaponize your past. I've shared this story with a few people that I felt close to. And as you know, when relationships go to shit, what's the first thing people do? They throw things at your weakest point. And I used to be a much more protective over this. I'm not near as protective Not so much because my dad is no longer around, but my dad, in my opinion, and that's all that matters is my opinion, had done a 180. My dad got out of prison, and he had a company that was legitimate and it made millions of dollars, and he was able to help out his kids. And unfortunately, towards the last 15, 16 years of his life, he was totally manipulated and duped, and that's a story I can't get into because I would have slander and all that bullshit. But to be manipulated by somebody. So my mom, unfortunately, was manipulated by my grandmother. The other daughter of my grandmother, my aunt, who's passed on, the younger than my mom, didn't allow that, but my mom did. Maybe because my aunt wasn't left with kids, and because maybe her ex-husband paid child support and my dad didn't, you know. So I'm not. It still made my mom answer to somebody who didn't have the right answers. Not anybody has the right answers. So I talk about this when I say in relationships, you know, when you're with somebody, not to give of your independence to anybody, especially not somebody behind a screen, and not anybody. You have to maintain your independence. So, not that anybody, again, was outwardly saying, well, you know, what if this comes up? Again, I'm older. It doesn't really affect me. My dad's no longer here. And he did do very well at the end. Not at the end. My dad died. I think he was 86, 87. So for the last, 42 years, he did really well, right? So that's my opinion of that situation. But being in, you know, I can't tell stories that, you know, involve other people, but there were situations that I felt were very unfair. And that was just the way that went. But just to say, you know, as a kid, you know, I can relate. I can relate to that. And also, you know, speaking out about families and such, I don't think anybody has the right answer, or we would be doing it right. What's right is what's right for us. Making decisions for children that you don't give any thought to, you know, how could that hurt them later? How might that affect them later? What am I cheating them out of so that they're going to feel that later? You have to be, as just not as a Scientologist, not as anybody, just as a responsible parent, you have to just be responsible. You know, nobody was asked to be put here. I don't care what Scientology thinks that people are out looking for Scientologists, that spirits are out looking for Scientologists so that they could jump in and be the one born. So as a kid, you know, I know what it's like to be helpless in a situation and just try to survive in your head and get the respite that you deserve and that you need. And, you know, that's why I want to talk about kids. That's why I want to talk about manipulations and deception and cults and, you know, funny shit in a serious world, or serious shit in a funny world? Isn't that the caption of this channel? So yeah, so that's all. I just wanted to share that with you guys. I do want to work on this project that I've been telling you about, so I'm hopeful that I could stay up a little bit. I think it's like 2:30 in the morning. Excuse me. I just got out of the shower, so I should be okay for a while. Coca-Cola, wonton soup. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. I'm not going to let you down. I wish you guys, again, the happiest and healthiest in 2024. May all your wishes and dreams and prayers and good energy come true. And again, thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. Please like, subscribe, and don't forget, be better today than you were yesterday, but not half as good as you're going to be tomorrow. Thanks, guys.